The motherboard market is a strange one because it's filled with products and features that the vast majority of PC builders don't need, but that they end up paying for anyway. And so trying to find a good motherboard that meets your needs can be pretty confusing. And this video is supposed to help make it less confusing. But really quick, this video is part of a complete guide on how to build a PC, and the other videos in the series are really important and helpful in understanding this video. So I will link the playlist in the cards and in the description below so you can go check it out. The YouTube channel Linus Tech Tips put out a video explaining the basics of how motherboards work and some of the miscommunication that surrounds the market. And you might want to go check out that video because it's really helpful. So I'll link that in the video below. But the TLDR is basically that there are a lot of things that motherboard manufacturers play up in the market that, just generally speaking, are totally unnecessary. For example, some motherboards have what's called SLI or Crossfire, which are features that allow you to use two graphics cards at the same time in the same motherboard as if they were one graphics card. And that's a pretty cool feature, but the vast majority of gamers and professionals actually don't use two graphics cards. So it's pretty useless for a lot of people, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to pay for if you don't need it. Now, a common mistake that a lot of people make when buying PC parts is that they try to future-proof their computer by purchasing higher-end parts than they actually end up using. And this is totally the case with motherboards. They'll buy a board that has 4 RAM slots when they maybe only need 2 because maybe they're gonna buy another 2 sticks down the line. But the reality is that most computer builders only end up using 2 sticks, and when they upgrade their RAM, they upgrade their whole system. So the way I approach motherboards is to start at the bottom and work my way up in terms of features. And this typically means that I start looking for motherboards in the $80 to $100 range and only pay for more if I need a specific feature, and I usually don't. This way I don't end up spending $300 on features that I'm probably never going to use on a gaming rig that I'm going to update in 3 to 5 years anyway. So one thing you will want to decide from the get-go is what size of motherboard do you want, because the size of your motherboard will determine the size of your case, and as a result, the overall size of your PC. Now, there are 3 standard sizes of motherboard: standard ATX, micro ATX, and mini ITX. One size isn't better than the other, but if it is your first time building a PC, then I would recommend building a computer with a standard ATX motherboard inside a mid-towered ATX case. But it's totally up to you. Okay, so now that you know the basics of motherboard shopping, let's hop on over to the computer and pick one out.
All right, let's go ahead and pick out the motherboard. Like I've said in previous videos, I buy all of my components from newegg.com. So I'm gonna go over here to components. I'm gonna go over motherboards, and we're building off of a Ryzen 5 5600X. So I'm gonna select AMD motherboards. Now then, a couple of things that I'm gonna select off to the left here is our socket type is AM4. That's what the Ryzen 5 5600X is. So I'm gonna select AM4. Then we're building off of an ATX form factor, not micro ATX or mini ITX. And then I do want to make sure that the motherboards we buy are new. So I'm gonna hit those, and then I'm gonna click apply. So it brings up a lot of motherboards here, featured items, and some of them are extraordinarily expensive, right? Like this one, $370 for a motherboard. And that's not how I prefer to look at motherboards, because not a lot of performance is derived from the motherboard, at least not in my experience. And so I'm going to sort by lowest price first. Now, the first one that comes up is this ASRock B450 Pro 4 R.2, which isn't much different than this one. So they're essentially the same motherboard, they're the same price. So I'm gonna open this one up. Now, something to understand is that the Ryzen 5 5000 series CPUs are built on the same architecture as the 3000 series CPUs. So we have a 5600X, and that runs off of the same architecture as a 3600X would. And so it says it supports the 3000 series and 5000 series CPUs. And this is the reason I bring that up, is that this Matisse CPU architecture, that's what we're working off of. So if you look this up, it's going to show you 3000 series CPUs, and those are also the same as the 5000 series CPUs. So this is telling us what kind of RAM will be supported with our 5600X. and it says the highest it's going to support is 3200 megahertz. Now that's not slow RAM, that's faster than a lot of Intel RAM, or Intel will let you get as far as RAM goes, but it's also not super fast as far as AMD RAM goes. And I'd prefer to get something in around the 4000 megahertz range. So this is not the motherboard I want to go with, even though it is the cheapest. Other than that, this thing isn't missing very much. So if you don't really care about getting like 4000 megahertz RAM, this isn't going to be a big deal for you. If, you know, you're not going to see like a huge difference in games or in most of your processing, but I do just want to, you know, mess around with some of that higher speed RAM. As you can see here, it doesn't have onboard Wi-Fi. If it did, there would be a couple of antennas here off of the I/O, but there are no antennas, so no onboard Wi-Fi, but it does have an RJ45 gigabit LAN port, so you can get Ethernet internet. And so that's what I would probably be doing. So onboard Wi-Fi is not so important to me for this motherboard for what I'm doing, because I'm going to be hooking it up to the wall to get my internet. But I do know that I don't want that one, so I'm not going to select these ones. Let's see, I could check this one. My guess is this one's probably going to be the same for most of these B450 motherboards, is that, oh look, this one does in fact support up to 4000 megahertz RAM. I don't like how this one looks though. I think I don't know, it's kind of like cyberpunk-esque, you know, so in that sense, it's kind of cool, but it's not my favorite look. It is only $99 though, $100. Let's see, what about this B551? It's an extra $10 in addition to this MSI one. I do like ASRock. I like the way ASRock looks. Everything is kind of, I don't know, shiny and silvery. So I like the way the ASRock one looks. So let's see, this one, it looks like will support those 5000 series CPUs. Oh, but it is saying it might require a BIOS update. So I might be dealing with that with this one anyway. But I don't think this one looks quite as nice. I like kind of the chrome feel on a lot of these parts, or this brushed aluminum look. You know what? I'm gonna go for it because it can support really, really fast RAM. So maybe I will end up overclocking my 4000 megahertz RAM, which is probably what I'm gonna end up going with. So I'm gonna go with this one, and that's how I pick a motherboard.
Okay, that's pretty much it. There are a lot more features that motherboards can have, and in some cases you may want those features, but in my experience, most motherboards are going to be just fine for most gamers and professionals, at least as long as you're buying one that is compatible with your CPU and the other parts that you're buying. But I also don't know everything. So if you're pretty experienced in PC building, go ahead and let me know what I missed in the comments below. I think that would be really awesome and helpful. What is it that you do when picking out a motherboard? If you found this video helpful at all, I would love a thumbs up and a subs from you, and stick around because I'll be releasing other videos on how to pick a case, RAM, drive, all sorts of things. So stick around for that, but until then, we will see you later.